Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutit. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. If you watch our show, you know that these are feeds coming in to the CBS News Broadcast Center at this very moment from all of our stations and affiliates around the country. If there's news breaking out there, we're going to bring it to you live right here on CBS News 24/7. Let's begin. We're just hours away from a government shutdown. If lawmakers cannot reach a deal, we are live on Capitol Hill with the fast-moving developments. Plus, it's beginning to look a lot like... Yeah, you're right, Stan. But in fact, what I was going to say, it's beginning to look a lot like a record for holiday travel. But some potentially nasty weather could dampen those plans. And coffee lovers, listen up. Thousands of Starbucks baristas are launching a 5-day strike starting today. Which states are being impacted? We'll tell you. This is CBS News 24/7. But we begin here this morning. Congress has until midnight to pass a spending bill to avert a government shutdown, and there could be a new vote at any moment. Last night, lawmakers failed to pass a revamp proposal that was backed by both Donald Trump and Elon Musk. More than 30 Republicans voted against it, including Texas Congressman Chip Roy, whom President-elect Trump threatened to primary earlier in the day. Listen to this.
I'm absolutely sickened by a party that campaigns on fiscal responsibility and has the temerity to go forward to the American people and say, you think this is fiscally responsible.
CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak is joining me now from Capitol Hill for some analysis. All right, Zach, as you know, 14 hours left to get a deal done. It's hard to see how Democrats are going to come to the rescue of Republicans. And let's not forget those 30-plus Republicans who voted against this bill. Even though Trump and Musk are trying to frame this as a Democratic problem, they had already agreed to a bipartisan deal that I suspect the president-elect would have also agreed to in the weeks previous.
Vlad, that's exactly right. There are a couple of things that could happen today. What we're hearing is currently a strategy that Speaker Johnson might deploy is to try breaking up the vote into what we'd call titles, which would be like voting on each individual portion of the bill. So you could vote on a continuing resolution, but then separately vote on the debt limit. The outcome of that, though, would likely be that the continuing resolution portion is passed and the debt limit is not, which obviously, as we've seen over the last 24 hours, would make the incoming president very unhappy. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that we have a very, very short limit continuing resolution to just kick this down into right after the holidays. And finally, something that is also a distinct possibility is that we do reach shutdown this evening when we hit midnight going into tomorrow. It seems that the president-elect is not entirely opposed to that. He seems to see it as something that may happen no matter what. And why not get it out of the way while Joe Biden is still president? Meanwhile, Speaker Johnson, he is someone who's looking at, not long ago, his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, being removed over similar issues. So he's very worried about maintaining his control. And if it's a matter of, do we go to shutdown or do I make deals that are going to lead to me being ousted from my leadership position in the new year, that's going to be a tough decision for him. So all of those somewhat dangerous options are on the table here.
Zach, while you were speaking, we just showed some pictures of some prominent Democrats, including Jamie Raskin and Jerry Nadler, in the halls of Congress. I'm told that they are waiting to see with bated breath what Speaker Johnson proposes. There's Jamie Raskin. Is this live, guys? This is tape. All right. So the question, of course, I watched Trey Gowdy on Fox News, as you know, Zach, former Republican congressman, rail against his own party, specifically against Mike Johnson, saying, you know, to the extent, I'm paraphrasing here, but they must really miss Kevin McCarthy now because there was a guy who knew how to whip votes. What is Speaker Johnson trying to do to get this party in line?
Well, Vlad, I say all the time that right now in Washington, the hardest job is Speaker of the House because you have razor-tight margins, you have a Republican Party that is fractured in many ways within itself, and you have the president-elect who is also the de facto leader of the party, but calling for things that go against what are traditional Republican ideals.
Yeah. Zach, it's an excellent point that you're making there. And I suspect that this is going to be a very difficult challenge for Speaker Mike Johnson, given that there are some Republicans, like Chip Roy, as you know, Zach, who are never going to vote to raise the debt ceiling unless they have some specifics on that. Zach Hudak for us at the Capitol. We appreciate it, Zach, as always, my friend. Thank you very much. Let's get more analysis from political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who's in West Palm Beach, Florida. She's covering the president-elect. And we can talk a little bit about, Caitlin, why President-elect Trump chose to come out against this resolution when presumably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in the days leading up to this resolution, he would have been in contact with the Republicans, specifically Mike Johnson and others, and presumably would have given the green light to move ahead. It was only when Elon Musk started to tweet, and there were some like 100 tweets in the span of just a couple of hours coming out against this, that the president-elect changed his tune. Now he's saying this is going to make America great again. What's the reaction you're hearing this morning from the former president, soon-to-be president again, about where we are?
Yeah, Vlad, if you've seen a picture of Donald Trump since the election, chances are that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is also in that picture. He has been at his side as much as he can over the past 6 weeks since Trump was elected, because of this, right? Because he's going to be the top ally in leadership. And so what you saw the other day was essentially Elon Musk taking up all the oxygen, sending out 100 tweets or posts on his platform X, urging lawmakers against this bill. And it was interesting because Democrats picked up on that as well and started to try to kind of needle Trump on that, saying, look, who's in charge here? Is Elon Musk holding all the cards here? And so what's happening now is you had the president-elect endorse this resolution that they came up with yesterday, that they voted on yesterday. But there were Republicans in that conference who weren't swayed by either Musk or by Trump himself, because they don't like continuing resolutions in the first place, and they also don't like the idea of postponing or lifting the debt ceiling at any point without major spending cuts. So that's been the sticking issue for not only Speaker Johnson, but speakers who have come before him. This is a long-standing part of this conference among the more conservative members that predates Trump. They just don't like these kinds of things. And so that's why Johnson had to cut a deal with Democrats in the first place. And so, depending on what happens here, you could be kind of back at square one, where you're going to need some support for Democrats for anything. Because remember, next year, the margins in the House that Republicans have, even though they'll control it, is even slimmer. And Donald Trump has picked a couple of House members as part of his cabinet, so that will create some vacancies as well. Politically speaking, the Trump team is arguing that Biden owns this shutdown because if it happens, because he is the president still.
Yeah, but Caitlin, and somebody should tell the president-elect he won the election. President Biden is still president of the United States, but he's a lame duck. No one is going to think in the waning days of his presidency that this is a Biden issue. And also, it doesn't hurt Biden politically because he's out of politics, presumably, after President-elect Trump is sworn in. So I don't understand why the president would say that this is going to hang on the current president of the United States, number one. And number two, the reality is he's trying to get this debt limit increase. There are some Republicans, as you say, who are fiscally conservative, who are never going to raise that debt limit. And yet, part of what got Donald Trump elected again as president was all these promises that he made, which are going to cost money. So he needs that debt ceiling raised.
Yeah, and it also costs money to shut the government down. And so for an incoming administration that was, a campaign waged on the economy, that remains an open question. But here's kind of how both camps are thinking about this. Democrats, as you mentioned, are saying, look, we had a deal. That was the deal that Biden endorsed. And this was blown up by Musk and Trump. And so that's kind of where they believe that they stand politically. And talking to Republicans, they don't believe that they will necessarily bear the brunt politically if the government shuts down, because if you look at past shutdowns, the government shut down during Trump's administration. It shut down in the early 90s when Newt Gingrich, he put a tweet out about this, led a government shutdown, and then Republicans gained seats. So they're kind of banking on the idea that politically the next election is 2 years from now, that people won't really remember this, and that they, in their view, will remember that Biden was president if they assign any blame at all. But that's just the politics at play here. Good reminder, though, when the government shuts down, this affects so many people, and we're right before the holidays, holiday travel, people missing paychecks. This has a bigger implication beyond just the politics.
Just a good reminder to our audience that the last time this Congress, the United States Congress, passed a balanced budget was way back in 1997. I think there are people in the studio who are still in grade school when that last happened. Interesting. Caitlin, as always, my friend, thank you very much. Good talking to you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, we're going to obviously be following all these developments throughout the course of the day. If there is a deal, we'll bring it to you right here on CBS News 24/7. Meanwhile, let's talk about the holiday travel rush. Well, it's here as Americans head to the airport to make their way to their holiday destinations. The TSA says it expects to screen nearly 40 million people during the next 2 weeks. Oh, and by the way, if the government shuts down, although TSA agents are required to be at their jobs, could still put a strain on our services. Yes, TSA is warning that today is going to be one of the busiest travel days to travel. So let's bring in CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve for more. So this budget battle on the Hill, Chris, I know that TSA agents are critical staff, but people could call out sick if they're not going to be receiving paychecks. What are some of the other potential issues travelers might face at the airport today?
Well, when it comes to shutdown questions, what we saw in 2019, and that one went on for over a month, it was after TSA officers started missing paychecks that you saw the sick call numbers increase. So there may not be an immediate impact at all at airports, particularly if it is a short shutdown. If it drags on, well, then you have a workforce that is among the lowest paid government employees. If they start missing paychecks, particularly more than one, that's when I think you'll start to see the sick calls increase, which means wait times at checkpoints increase. The other thing to watch as a shutdown would continue, Vlad, would be air traffic control staffing. The 2019 shutdown ended very quickly after there were a notable spike in sick calls by air traffic controllers in the New York City area. It crippled transportation in and out of New York City for about a day, and all of a sudden there was a political will to end that shutdown. So things to watch, but probably a couple of weeks down the line if, in fact, a shutdown happens. Today, government is operating. Everyone's getting paid, so that's good. About 2.8 million people expected at TSA checkpoints. That's busy, but not like setting a new record busy. Still, we saw some very long lines at checkpoints here in Seattle, which is not unusual for the morning. We are watching the weather. Yesterday, it was Minneapolis that saw about more than 500 flights delayed because of snow. Today, we're watching Chicago, as well as Philadelphia, the New York City airports, and Boston. Also potential for delays in LA and San Diego, Vlad.
All right, Chris Van Cleve breaking it down. And folks, the reason Chris knows so much about that is he used to cover Capitol Hill. And so he's able to bring us that insight and analysis, in addition to bringing us our transportation woes from a random airport, which is where you normally find him throughout the course of the year. We love you, Chris. Thank you very much, my brother. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Vlad. Yeah, Chris called it. We had that snow yesterday with the Clipper in Minneapolis. Some spots in Minnesota picked up over a half a foot of snow with that system. It's moving through the Midwest and into the Northeast today, so that will cause some travel slowdowns. Let's talk about what to expect. Again, as we go through the day, we'll be looking at those travel delays, especially in the east, as snow and some rain starts to move in. What we have here is kind of an interaction between two systems, a coastal component, and here is the remnants of that Clipper moving out of Chicago now, but portions of Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and eventually tonight into early tomorrow morning. This will be the major cities of the Northeast. It's not going to be much snow, but it may be enough to slow things down in the air and also on the roads. The heaviest snow will actually be up in Nova Scotia, where cities like Halifax could pick up a half a foot. But we're looking at more of a nuisance snow shower event across much of the Northeast with an inch or two at best. But again, that's the area that may experience delays today. Cities like New York, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. Coming up, I'll take you across the rest of the nation and we'll look ahead into your weekend travel. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The suspect in the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's murder faces new federal charges that could bring the death penalty. Luigi Mangione was brought back to New York City yesterday. He faced 4 new counts of murder and is now in the same prison as Sean Diddy Combs. Joining me now is senior coordinating producer for CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit, Anna Schechter. Good to see you, Anna.
Great to be with you.
So the lawyer yesterday for Luigi Mangione expressed some confusion as to who's handling the case. Why do we think that the federal government is getting involved here, and why is she confused?
Well, she was making her case to the judge that she was stunned. They were showing up in a Manhattan court thinking that they were going to be arraigned on the Manhattan District Attorney charges, which include first-degree murder, 11 counts in total. And instead, Mangione was taken into custody by the FBI, and they had to go to a different federal courthouse before a federal judge. And she said, I was surprised this morning. What is going on? She was asking for clarity. That she said there were 2 different theories of the case. Manhattan District Attorney is charging first-degree murder and second-degree murder as an act of terrorism. Meanwhile, the feds are charging him with stalking and murder, but that's a very different theory. So the feds are going after the fact that he crossed state lines with the intent to kill Brian Thompson. So she's saying, well, wait a minute, which case are we trying here? She was asking, is this a joint investigation? Are there 2 separate investigations? And we got the exact transcript from her law firm, because I think they wanted us, in the public to understand that she's frustrated and is literally trying to figure out which defense she should be using, and if also what the calendar is going to look like. Are we going to have the district attorney Bragg trial first and then the federal trial? Usually the Fed case will take precedence. So many questions. It's been very dramatic and augmented by that kind of crazy footage where you see him getting into a plane and then on a chopper just to get footage. Yeah, exactly. It was really a big spectacle yesterday.
Yeah, in fact, I was on my way home after the show towards Brooklyn, and as I came towards the pier near the Brooklyn Bridge, I could see all this police activity. Waiting for the aircraft to arrive.
Almost unprecedented.
Yeah, it was sort of unprecedented, right? Had you ever seen anything like that before?
Nothing like that. This is usually reserved for drug kingpins, where they're really concerned that somebody's going to try to take a hit on the suspect. So what the police are saying is, well, this was for his safety, and that is the case. But it did sort of feel like there was some showmanship to go along with that.
One other thing, correct me if I'm wrong, New York doesn't have a death penalty. Does New York State?
Right.
So the reports are that he could face a death penalty. How would that work?
Because of the federal charge. If he's convicted on a federal murder charge, and if the Department of Justice, which by the time this plays out will be a Trump Department of Justice, if those prosecutors seek the death penalty, that is potentially the outcome. It's very unusual, usually reserved for terrorism cases, but it certainly is a possibility in this case.
Wow. All right. Anna Schechter reporting for us this morning. Thank you, Anna. Appreciate it. Okay, U.S. officials are in Syria for the first time in decades, and there's renewed hope in finding missing U.S. journalist Austin Tice. What we know about their efforts to find him, you're streaming CBS News 24/7. I want to take you to Capitol Hill, where Congresswoman Premiya Jayapal is talking about the budget battle. Let's listen.
Was going to need Democrats. That's why we negotiated the bill. So he could grow a spine right now, ignore his puppeteers, Musk and Trump. We're still not sure which one is going to be the real president. And then he could put this negotiated bill on the floor. The American people would be happy to be able to not have this chaos and uncertainty in their lives. And we would all get to go home.
I mean, but short of the bipartisan agreement that was scuttled Wednesday, is there anything else you'd be willing to support?
I mean, I don't know, because that was the agreement. That was the agreement.
Just a straight, clean CR.
I mean, that was the agreement, was what was negotiated. So we'll go in and hear what our leader has to say, and how he sees this unfolding. He did a magnificent job of negotiating something that would really help Americans. The Farm Bill needs to be reauthorized. That was part of the whole thing in the beginning. So there are pieces in here that are important. Communities are suffering from no disaster funding. That was in here. And so I think, this was just a huge tactical mistake. And by the way, I don't think that this is good for Donald Trump going in as the new president, because his approval ratings are already going down.
For you, extreme MAGA Republicans are marching America to a painful government shutdown that will crash the economy and hurt working class Americans, because they would rather enact massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors than fund cancer research for children.
Could you be open to a CR without a debt limit increase?
Thank you.
All right. You were first listening to Congresswoman Jayapal, and then we pivoted to take you live to the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries of New York, just giving an update on where things are. This is not looking good. We'll see what happens over the next couple of hours. They have until midnight to reach a deal. We got some breaking news for you out of Syria, where the United States military says it has killed an ISIS leader in an airstrike over the east of the country. This comes as U.S. diplomats are in Syria this morning for the first known face-to-face talk with the country's new leaders following the collapse of the Assad regime earlier this month. Among the delegation is the Biden administration's top official for freeing Americans held overseas, and this comes amid renewed efforts in the search for missing American journalist Austin Tice. Joining us now for more is CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab, who's joining me from London to discuss. So, Imtiaz, this is sort of a remarkable moment. Just take a step back and explain to the audience how significant this is to have U.S. officials in Syria meeting with leadership of that country.
Well, Vlad, if you told me 2 weeks ago that U.S. delegate would be in Damascus meeting with the new leaders of Syria, who were rebels in the northeast of the country, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a U.S.-designated terrorist organization, and having a face-to-face meeting with their leader, who went by the nom de guerre al-Julani, who has a $10 million bounty on his head, I would have said you were hallucinating. I would have been hallucinating. But that is the reality of what's happening in Syria today. Things have changed so dramatically and so rapidly. Now, Mr. Julani, who also goes by the name of Ahmed al-Sharar, had a message for that U.S. delegation that he said that this Syria under his leadership was not a threat to the West, and appealed to them to remove those sanctions which have crippled Syria's economy. But we've also been hearing from senior U.S. officials who said that while they appreciate the talk coming from al-Sharar, the new Syrian leadership also needs to walk the walk. And that means protecting the rights of women and minorities and ensuring that they do not have any ties with groups like al-Qaeda, which HTS once did. Vlad.
So, Imtiaz, what about the potential of finally bringing Austin Tice home? We know that the Syrians have indicated that he is still alive. Certainly the family is holding out hope. The president of the United States is as well. What are you hearing on that front?
There's so much hope for the fate of Austin Tice. As you so rightly point out, the president believes he's alive. His family believes he's alive. And when those prisons were emptied just 2 weeks ago, following the collapse of the Assad regime, many had hoped that we would find Austin Tice. We have not yet, and that, of course, is incredibly alarming for many, many people who leave hope that he will be found. But at this stage, there's no trace of him. Vlad.
All right, Imtiaz Tyab for us. Thank you, Imtiaz. Appreciate it. There is a lot of movement on Capitol Hill, but we've heard from Republicans, we've heard from Democrats, but we have not yet heard from President Biden. We'll go to the White House next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following. Thousands of Starbucks workers are expected to begin a 5-day strike today in 3 major cities. The baristas are pushing for better wages and working conditions. Hundreds of stores in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle will be impacted. The man convicted of killing 2 teenage girls in Delphi, Indiana, is back in court today. Richard Allen will be sentenced for the 2017 murders of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German. Jury convicted him last month. He faces 90 to 130 years in prison. And Malaysia says it will begin a new search for MH370 more than 10 years after it disappeared. It will be run by a U.S.-based ocean robotics technology company. You'll remember the plane vanished in 2014 with 239 people on board on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Malaysia's transport minister says the new effort will scour a 15,000 square mile area in the Indian Ocean where there is believed to be credible new data. We're following the very latest developments from Capitol Hill, where lawmakers have until midnight to prevent a government shutdown. Last night, House Republicans failed to pass a Trump-backed proposal. Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now from the White House to discuss. Ed, good to see you, my friend. So how is the White House feeling about these negotiations? And what are they signaling, if any signals at all, that they would sign an agreement, given that they were prepared to sign the one that was rejected last night?
They were, they continue to monitor things over here, but are remaining pretty quiet publicly, Vlad, in touch with congressional Democrats, who, of course, let's remember, still control the Senate, as they watch the House try to sort out what, if anything, it can get passed and then sent over to the Senate. The deal that was rejected last night would have been rejected if taken up at all in the Democratic-controlled Senate, because it essentially had none of those things that had been in the original agreement released earlier in the week. The Democrats had told Republicans would be needed to be in there in order to get their votes. And so given the closely divided nature of the House, the even closer divided nature of the Senate, bipartisanship is what's needed to get these big bills passed. And so far, at least, Republicans signaling this morning again, they have no intention of negotiating with Democrats. So as long as that continues, all the White House does is tell federal agencies and the federal employees potentially affected, prepare for a shutdown that would begin at midnight tonight. If you're deemed essential or non-essential, you know what to do. And eventually, no matter how long an impasse runs, you would get your back pay. And that's what's expected. Of course, what complicates things in each of these agencies and with each of these programs is we're entering the holiday season when people were going to be off anyway. You know, do I have to worry about whether I'm paid during the vacation? The general answer, because we've seen a few of these in years past, is yes. Everyone gets back paid if you were supposed to be paid during an impasse caused by lawmakers who couldn't come to an agreement. The question at that point would just be, how long will this go, and who will be in charge of Congress once it's resolved? Because January 3rd, of course, we flip to a new Congress that would be completely Republican-controlled.
Ed, why do you think we haven't heard yet from President Biden?
It's not his problem. This is a problem of the Republicans' making, is what this White House would tell you. And while, and in their view, the solution is simple: pass that bipartisan plan, and he'll sign it. But it's true that he has been rather removed in recent weeks from all activities, but especially any conversation with Congress about this short-term spending plan. Their hope had been that this would have been the kind of plan that would take things all the way through the end of the fiscal year, through next late September, and that it could have included some legacy burnishing items that are of concern to the president. And now that it's clear that it's going to be some kind of a short-term deal, there's less interest and concern for them to be involved in those negotiations. And so the White House has opted to just let Democrats, who are going to have to deal with Republicans anyway up there on the Hill in the coming weeks and in the next year, to negotiate this themselves. And look, the longer he stays out of this, the less likely he himself can be blamed for any of it. And while the president-elect and the vice president-elect are blaming the Biden administration for this, what Democrats turn around and say is, no, look, we're here. We cut a deal with you. We were on board with that 1,547-page plan that you suddenly rejected because Elon Musk didn't like it. You could go back to that, and we'd sign it right away.
That's sort of, I was thinking about that earlier, Ed, when I was having a conversation with Caitlin. I just don't see how, even though the president-elect is trying to hang this on Biden and the Democrats, that the American people would perceive it as such. And so very, very quickly, in your mind, if this deal does not happen, what does this portend sort of for the next couple of years? I mean, I know this is just one, we find ourselves at this moment often in every year we talk about something like this, but I just sort of wonder if this is a signal of the way things might play out over the course of the next 4 years.
It is if Republicans don't want to negotiate with Democrats. Look, you can get things through either of these chambers with just Republican votes if all the Republicans agree. But when it comes to spending matters, they don't. There is serious disagreement with about 40 House Republicans who continue to say, I don't want to vote for these kinds of short-term spending deals that just grow the deficit, that don't cut anything while we try to spend more money. They've been elected on that principle. They will live and die by that principle. And so we'll see if they can sort things out amongst themselves. If they can't, then yeah, there'll be a lot of gridlock, or eventually they'll come around and figure they got to negotiate with Democrats.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Ed, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. All right, millions of Americans are opting to travel by car instead of hopping on a plane to reach their holiday destination. According to AAA, nearly 90% of holiday travelers will be driving this year, and they anticipate 107 million people to be on the roads. That is up by 2.5 million from last year. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry, who joins me now live from Atlanta to talk about how busy the roads are expected to be in the area. So what are you hearing, Skylar?
Hey, Vlad, good to see you as always. Well, the reason for that is that airport and airline prices are up and gas prices are down. You just take a look at what's happening, especially during the holiday season. A lot of people are traveling with young children and families. Obviously much easier to hit the road with, 5, 6 people in their car as opposed to shelling out big time bucks for those airline tickets. And so AAA says that we will see some 107 million people hit the road. That's slightly up from what we saw last year. And really, we will see the big brunt of this happen after Christmas, though many people are already hitting the road. But they don't call this the busiest airport in the world for no reason either. Airport officials here say that they anticipate a pretty busy day here as well. But the big bulk expected next Friday, where more than 300,000 people are expected to hit the air during the holiday travel period, which is between today and January 5th. Hartsfield-Jackson alone says that they anticipate more than 3.7 million travelers by air. Take that into consideration with other major cities and airports, and it's going to be record-shattering all across the country. And many people are already saying that pack your patience, the cliches, get here early, do the things that you have to do to make sure that you make it to your destination on time.
All right, Skylar Henry for us live from Atlanta Airport. We appreciate it, Skylar. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with another look at the national forecast. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Vlad, good morning. Well, the good news for the weekend for folks traveling Saturday and Sunday is that we've got pretty quiet weather across the nation. Today, not looking quite as good because the Clipper system that brought the heavy snow yesterday to parts of Minnesota is now moving through the Great Lakes, and it is starting to diminish a little bit, but it's going to join forces with a new low off the coast of the Northeast, and that could bring some dicey weather to cities like here in Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. And also notice out west over the Pacific Northwest, yet another storm just poised to come on shore. That's the one spot that could have some issues over the weekend. So you can see some snow down around the Cincinnati area this morning, starting to fill in over central Pennsylvania. Anyone headed maybe to State College for that big Penn State playoff game, my alma mater tomorrow, you may have some slowdowns today. It's just going to be bitterly cold tomorrow. But watch for some evening slowdowns in spots like Boston, New York City, Philadelphia as that precipitation works its way in. Not expecting heavy snow, but enough to slow things down with any falling snow or rain. The cold is going to start to permeate down into the south today. Atlanta only 55 degrees, but it's dry. We're still very warm in Florida, and here comes the cold. The bulk of the Arctic air is over the northern plains. Minneapolis after yesterday's snow, just 17 for the high today. And we will see more rain trying to come on shore over the Pacific Northwest, especially as we head into the weekend. We've got quiet conditions across much of the south and starting to warm up even more for the weekend. So your weather headlines for travel this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, quiet across most of the United States. Best chance for delays is in the Northwest Saturday and Sunday, and it will turn bitterly cold over the Northeast, Vlad. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you very much. Coming up, 48 Hours speaks to the father of JonBenet Ramsey, what he thinks happened to his daughter. We're going to have a preview next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. We do have breaking news on a story we told you about a short time ago. The man convicted of killing two teenage girls in Delphi, Indiana, just received the maximum sentence, 130 years. Richard Allen was convicted in the 2017 murders of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German. Again, Richard Allen sentenced to 130 years in prison. The murder of JonBenet Ramsey is still unsolved almost 28 years later. 48 Hours' Erin Moriarty has been covering this case since 1999, and she sat down with JonBenet's father, who told her he is still hopeful the case can be solved.
John Ramsey is asking the Boulder, Colorado Police Department to do whatever it takes to bring the killer of his daughter to justice. A killer who he believes had entered their home while the family had Christmas dinner at a friend's house.
I think he was hiding. I think he waited till we fell asleep and then murdered JonBenet.
The 6-year-old was found bludgeoned and strangled in the basement of the family home on December 26, 1996. It was a media sensation, a child beauty queen, a strange ransom note. For years, suspicion fell on her parents, who always insisted they had nothing to do with their daughter's death. Here is Patsy Ramsey being interrogated in 1998.
Go back to the damn drawing board. I didn't do it. John Ramsey didn't do it, and we didn't have a clue of anybody who did do it.
The couple was never charged. Patsy Ramsey died of cancer in 2006 at the age of 49, and not much has changed in the investigation.
John, do you believe this case could be solved?
Yes, I do. If the police will take advantage of all the technology that's available to them.
Ramsey says there are 7 items from the crime scene that still need to be tested, including the garrote used to strangle JonBenet, the suitcase found in the basement of the Ramsey home, and a rope found in a guest bedroom. The Boulder Police Department insists that it is doing everything it can. In November 2024, it released a statement which said, "The assertion that there is viable evidence and leads we are not pursuing, to include DNA testing, is completely false." Now 81, John Ramsey is remarried and determined to clear his family's name.
You can look for 48 Hours on CBSNews.com and streaming on Paramount+. We're keeping an eye on some of the nation's busiest airports as officials brace for a record number of travelers this holiday season. CBS News San Francisco reporter Veronica Macias is live at San Francisco International Airport. So tell me, Veronica, what's it looking like right now?
Vlad, good morning. 159,000 people expected to fly in and out of SFO this morning. And I could tell you the majority of that number has already flown to their holiday destinations. The crowds here, they've been so busy. It's going to make anyone dizzy to be standing in these lines, seeing the crowds of people this morning. And things are going to, well, get a little worse over the weekend. Sunday is expected to be the peak day here at SFO, that number growing by just a few thousand. The good news is, though, that things are smooth. With a commanding voice here, TSA has been moving people to different terminals throughout the morning, keeping the lines moving. TSA is projecting a steady volume of travelers throughout the holiday, with close to 500,000 people being screened between the 17th of this month and December 23rd. Now, we've met several passengers this morning who are definitely feeling the holiday spirit. They can't wait to be reunited with their loved ones, they tell us. Some people going to Buenos Aires for the first time to meet family members. Other people going to a Disney cruise, which they do annually. But even though we have seen the holiday spirit here at SFO, we've also seen the Grinch, with lots of people just honking outside in departure. So no matter where you're flying out of, remember to give yourself plenty of time as you head to the airport. This airport in particular named the best because of just all the amenities they have here at SFO, which is a good thing for those people traveling over the weekend, Vlad.
All right, Veronica, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Boston's Logan International Airport is already seeing its share of holiday travelers, and that is where we find CBS News Boston reporter Laura Heffley.
AAA here in the Northeast is expecting a record-breaking amount of air travel, expecting nearly 8 million passengers to be heading to their holiday destination by plane, and Boston's Logan Airport is a great example of that. We have watched all morning as lines for both TSA and baggage check have grown significantly. The airport is predicting that this coming weekend and the weekend between Christmas and New Year's will be the busiest time for airport staff. So, of course, they're asking travelers to have patience. They're also warning travelers about the weather, saying that this cold weather we're expecting in the coming days is going to force airport staff to de-ice the planes. That could slow things down a bit. But of course, it is a safety issue, and they're going to have to get that done before these planes can take off. Now, let's keep talking about the weather for a second. It's also going to affect Massachusetts roadways. The Department of Transportation has pre-positioned roughly 3,000 pieces of equipment, including those salt trucks, which take care of those icy roadways, making them safer for drivers. AAA here in the Northeast predicting 90% of people traveling to their holiday destination will do so by car. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. We're keeping a close eye on some inclement weather that could impact your holiday travel plans. The latest forecast next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Prince William and Princess Kate unveiled their annual family Christmas card. The royal couple is seen here with their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, all hugging with their country home in the background. They're expected to join King Charles and Queen Camilla for their traditional Christmas celebration. This time of year, Santa and his elves are busy, so sometimes they need helpers. CBS News Minnesota reporter Tony Peterson went to a small Wisconsin town and a neighborhood where one couple is making wishes come true.
Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus.
Put old letters in there to Santa.
Santa. No one in life is like Santa.
He's like old, and he flies a sleigh with reindeer.
Every letter starts out with, I love you, Santa.
He had a big beard.
The Armbrusters next door moved in after we moved in, and they had a mailbox, the Santa mailbox that they put out for the last couple of years. And when they were about to move, they came to us and very formally asked, would you be willing to take over the Santa mailbox? I said, absolutely, we will do that.
I wanted a bell from Rudolph's Harness.
As Santa's helper, I handwrite all the responses.
A lot of them are funny.
It's this belief and that true innocence and hope and belief that the kids have that comes through in the letters.
We don't just get letters from kids, we get letters from adults. We actually had fun last night writing our letters.
Your mailbox and the joy it brings our children also gives me something that can't be bought, and that's the chance to be a kid again. Little guy said, I want all my gifts to go to Timmy. He moved away after his parents got in a divorce.
We're reading letters and sometimes weeping with joy. I thought, if we're touched this much, then people need to experience this, the innocence and the sense of wonder. And we're all looking for hope. When you give love, you get love.
Dear Santa, I just wanted to take a minute and thank you for taking the time to write to all the kids in Hudson.
Merry Christmas!
Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with the last look at the national forecast.
What a great story that was, Vlad, making wishes come true. And if maybe your wish is to see some snow for Christmas, there are parts of the country that will see at least a little bit of pre-Christmas snow out there, possibly even this evening. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we can expect as far as your holiday travel forecast is concerned. This is the same system that brought the snow to Minnesota yesterday, causing some delays likely in Cincinnati, where the snow is falling, Indianapolis, and starting to fill in here in Philadelphia, and eventually New York City and Boston may be hit with some snow and rain, Boston especially, and then up into the Canadian Maritime provinces with snow heading into tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow's holiday travel forecast, it's just very cold across the east, nice and warm in the west. Best chance for delays will be across the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, Vlad. I'll send it back to you.
Kate, if I don't see you, have a wonderful holiday. Thank you very much. That does it for me, folks, but stay right where you are. After the break, my friend Elizabeth Cook is live from San Fran with all the news breaking from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.